higher the Indonesian diversity and the management of this diversity for the strength of the country. However, this war started in 1955 and was supported by foreign powers, among them the US, of course, the British. Israel also had a very strong role. And it used to be the largest and the oldest continuous war in Africa till 2005, where the peaceful settlement reached. And the person who was leading this rebel movement became the second man in the country, the late John Garang. John Garang was a guy who propagating for the unity of Sudan. But the plan was to separate Sudan, to divide Sudan, southern Sudan from Sudan. So after he was appointed as the second man in the country, the deputy president, only less than a month, he died in a plane crash from Uganda. And many believe that this was a plot against him. And since then, the Western power supported the separatists, especially the Americans. Let's say it openly. U.S. had, it is written in the media, they have supported the separatists, and the referendum took place in 2011, which the majority in southern Sudan opted for separation, and they have, and the government of Sudan accepted their referendum result, and southern Sudan was declared an independent state. This is political problems within the country, but it was projected by the international media as if it is a war between Muslims and Christians. While the reality, this is very important, the majority in the southern Sudan are pagan. Muslims in southern Sudan are more than Christians, but it's still the Christians who were the elites and the one who spoke about the rest. That's why it is being projected as if it is a war between Arabs, between Muslims and Christians. After the separation of southern Sudan, people were happy, okay, we have a new neighbor. Immediately, a problem of Darfur emerged. That was after 2011. And because Darfur is 100% Muslims, there is no Christian. What to say about this, how they can project this story to the world? They mentioned in the media, this is a war between Arabs and Africans. Arabs are enslaving Africans. There is slavery problems, and they start supporting, the war there. And it is being mentioned in the media as if it is a Holocaust, they said, just like this. This is the worst war in the world, while the reality is quite different. And I will tell you a very interesting story. I think most of you know about Colin Powell, the former Secretary of the State, the American Minister of Foreign Affairs, Secretary of the State, Colin Powell, general. He was a general in the army. Colin Powell is regarded as an Afro-American. He visited Darfur, and he met the governor. Darfur is the size of France. It's huge, and it is rich of a lot of minerals. In certain area of Darfur, you dig the ground for 4 meters, you get groundwater. We have not less than 1 million street of mango, widely grown. So it is very, very rich land. And people are living peacefully for thousands of years, Arabs and those who are originally from different, just like here in Indonesia, different tribes and different groups. So Colin Powell was invited by the governor of that, one of the foreign states, and he mentioned to him that we know that there is a war or differences between the African Darfurian and Arab Darfurian. So the governor was sitting with his cabinet and asked him straight away, would you please, Your Excellency, identify who is the Arab and African among us? And Colin Powell, he although he's an Afro-American, he was the whitest guy among them. So this reveals how this Western media play with facts and always try to give very ill information and destroying the stability in these countries, especially in many African countries and in Sudan. Here, before that was in 1988, we have a multi-party government, a democratic government. The former Prime Minister the late Sadiq al-Mahdi, decided to give free hand to some tribes to defend themselves. That was in 1988. At that time, a group of tribe young men defend themselves against the other tribe. It was a sort of tribal war between the nomads and farmers. I want just to give you this background because it is very important to know from where this Hemeti, the guy who's making now a big problem in Sudan, emerged, how his power came to being. So the war in Darfur, it has, to a large extent, due to environmental problems because farmers are settled in the place where they farm their goods, and nomads are traveling from south to east with huge, herds and cattle across the farms to the southern area and in the summer, and to the north in the winter and rainy season. And due to the drought, certain years in 1988 and the late 80s, so water became a little bit scarcity, and the problem started between the farmers who are originally Arabs. When I say Arabs, they are not Arabs like the one you imagine. They are of the same features, same culture. All of them belong to, if any of you know about the Sufism in Africa, the Tijaniya. So these belong to almost culturally, they have a lot of similarities. However, this problem started at that time, and later on, during the last regime, Bashir, he make use of this tribal fighters, and he put them as a border guard, to guard the border of Sudan, the western border. And due to political ambitions, and it was a strategic mistake by the former president, he appointed this Muhammad Hamdan Daglo, the leader of the current insurgency, as the commander of the, what they call it, the Rapid Support Force. So the guy started to be direct link with President Bashir. He's got a group of soldiers, not more than 20,000. They were under the control of the army, and they were scattered in camps in the border, and their movement is controlled by the army. After the revolution, the downfall of Bashir regime, and a new government, interim government took place. At that time, General Daglo managed to gain support of some political parties, smallest political groups, and also managed to build relations with some foreign elements. Again, here the foreign elements is very significant in what's going on in Sudan now, and even since the independence of Sudan and pre-independence of Sudan. So the guy started having connections with some foreign elements, foreign countries, unfortunately, some regional countries, also having direct contact with him. He used to smuggle gold. As I mentioned, Sudan is producing, Sudan now is the third largest producer, but generally we cannot give an actual record. But some reports saying that Sudan last year exported more than 200 tons of gold. And this gold, to a large extent, the smuggled one, is controlled by his power. And you can imagine his troops, exceeded from 20,000 to more than 100,000 fighters, heavily armed, well equipped, and they received training from some foreign elements. And the guy became all of a sudden a tycoon. In the history of Sudan, we haven't experienced a person who controlled more than 100,000 fighters, heavily armed, well equipped, so much of money. Just you can imagine, more than 20,000 vehicles. And those armored vehicles, how much fuel, how much maintenance, how much money to run all this. So that means there's not a money of a person, an ordinary person. That means there are some foreign elements behind that. Why? There is always a greed and ambition. This country is rich, and they want through this guy to be used as a stooge or a puppet to control the country. An agreement, political agreement, were in process during this framework agreement between the political parties and the army, by which the army were insisting for integration of this rapid support forces within 2 years. Surprisingly, General Douglas said, no, we cannot have the integration within 2 years. It has to be done within 10 years. And many were very much surprised because these forces, you cannot imagine in Indonesia to have a separate forces without the command of the army to be an independent. There is no country in the world has two army. The national army is one. It is under the command of the supreme commander of the army. This is what we are trying to, our leaders were trying to reach. He insisted for 10 years while the army, all the rational politicians were then a negotiation going on, and on the day of this, the problem erupted on the 15th of April. They were supposed to meet. And in the morning, imagine they were neighbors. More than 60 up the residence of the president in an attempt to kill him or assassinate him. And the whole, and luckily, he managed to be saved by his presidential guard. Unfortunately, 35 of their brave soldiers were killed. And it seems the plan was not only to kill Burhan, the plan was to seize power by force. And let me here give you one background, because now if you listen to the media saying that they are in command of the presidential balance, and they are controlling the armed forces headquarters and some of the airports. The reality was that these forces were guarding the same, vicinities. For example, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, some soldiers, support forces. And the presidential balance, the same things happened. And in the supreme command of the army also, some of them were there in the vicinities. All of a sudden, these people just and attack their brothers. Hours later, so the goal, the supreme goal for them is to control the government by force and to impose himself as the ruler of the country. In this case, the army has no option. Transitional. No other option than to fight against the. If there is a mutiny in the army of any country in the world, of all either surrender and they have to be. So what's going on now in Sudan? The army has regained the control and almost, say more than 80% of the areas controlled by them has been regained the control. And these people have scattered in the capital, not less than 40,000 of them. Imagine in a capital. So the army is just doing something like surgery. After the headquarters has been attacked, destroyed by the army, they have lost the logistical support. And they have started, attacking even groceries. And unfortunately, also, they have attacked several embassies, among them the Indonesian 5 other embassies. The American embassy were attacked. The European Union also were attacked. The Indian embassy was attacked. The Indonesian embassy, they came and loot one car. Indonesian embassy. The same thing with the Malaysian embassy. So the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has issued a letter just like condemning this one. And this is not acceptable to attack, diplomatic missions. They have attacked some hospitals and used them as base to, imagine 4 or 5 hospitals. Sacked out. Put their anti-aircraft, So yesterday, the Arab League had an urgent meeting and a statement was issued condemning attack of civilians, attack of diplomatic missions, and attack of hospitals. So we hope that this bring them back to realize that the whole world is against this kind of savage behavior, and we hope that within 2 weeks or less than that, as we have been heard from the commander on the ground, all this will be cleared, and the army will regain the control over the country, and will go for an interim period, which will be succeeded by an election, hopefully. So this is just like in a nutshell what's going on in Sudan, but we are really looking forward for you as a journalist to tell the facts, to know the background about what's going on, and to a large extent, what's going on is having a link with some foreign elements. This is very important to be mentioned. And this power, this group, of this General Daglo, has no any support by the people. I will to show you the children has been, recruited with them, and how these people are not at all welcomed by the people of Khartoum, and there is no any way for them politically to gain power or to have any political role. So this is what's going on in a nutshell. If you have. So if any of you have any question, please, you are free to.
Excellent. Please introduce yourself and your media.
Assalamualaikum, Mr. Ambassador. I'm Eno from National Radio of Indonesia. I have some questions here. First, since we know that lots of Sudanese fleeing from the country amidst the conflict, do you have in mind to suggest them to come to Indonesia for the temporary time, if it's possible? Okay, second question is about, do you think Sudan needs the humanitarian assistance from Indonesia? If you think so, what kind of the humanitarian assistance that Sudan needs from Indonesia? Thank you.
Second one is you.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. I am Akil from the Jakarta Post. I have several questions. The first, you have explained to us the background of the conflict. So what will be the conditions for the conflict in Sudan to end? And then, and you said that there are some foreign elements into this conflict, and some media reported that the involvement of the Russian Wagner Group. What do you say about that? And then my last question is...
Can you repeat this?
Yeah, the second question is, what do you say about media reports that say there is involvement from the Russian mercenary group, the Wagner Group? Then the third question is, we see a lot of people, including Indonesians, fleeing Sudan since the conflict. So what do you say about them? Will they be able to come safely, come back to Sudan after the conflict ends? Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. Thanks for your offer. I wish if Indonesia is close to Sudan, then we would have seen a lot of Sudanese coming to Indonesia. But since the far geographic proximity is difficult for the Sudanese to come all the way to Indonesia, some of them went to the neighboring countries, Egypt, and most of them to those who left the countries went to Egypt. But the majority of the Sudanese left the capital to their local areas. Even my family, for example, I'm from a place 150 kilometers south of Khartoum. It is very safe. So my sister and so many of my family members, they went back home to the origin where they belong. And things are very stable in those rural areas. Thank you for this, the second question about the humanitarian assistance. Yes, we do need some urgent humanitarian assistance, especially for those who are wounded. And the hospitals also, as I mentioned, some hospital has been destroyed. I think more than 40% of our hospital were attacked by those savage group of rapid support forces. We have a list of our requirements. I'm looking for a meeting with the Minister of Health in Indonesia. And inshallah, I look forward to see him soon. And we will try to seek support from our brothers and friendly countries. We have been receiving some support from some countries. I think among them Sultanate of Oman and maybe Egypt and Kuwait also. And these assistance are coming on a regular manner, and we hope also to have something from our support from our Indonesian brothers, as we used to have always good relations. The condition for ending the war, I think. In the media, they're saying that there should be a negotiations. But what I've been hearing up to last night from one of the senior commander and member of the Supreme Council of Sudan, he's saying it clearly. If there is a mutiny in the army, the mutineers cannot sit with the government and dictate their position, because they are rebellious forces. They have two options: either to put their arms and surrender, or they have to face their consequences. So there is no equal parties, you know. Now some people talking about humanitarian ceasing fire, which is accepted by the army, okay, to cease fire, to bring humanitarian assistance, but there is no way for negotiation for the time being between the army and the rebel group. These are rebel groups, and who took a mutiny against the whole country, and they want to seize power by force. And they had an attempt to kill the president of the country. So the question of any peaceful negotiation, it is not existing at all. So we are expecting, hopefully within a few days, you will hear that the army will impose a control over the country. And these things, inshallah, will be finished. Regarding the Wagner, we heard, yes, in the media that because this General Daglo had relations with some foreign elements, and generally in a place of instability, you find so much of opportunistic, people who plan to enrich themselves within the country where there is no real control. So we cannot say it officially, but we hear from the media that he has connections with Wagner, and later on the news will be confirmed whether this fact is true or not. We'll wait and have some confirmed report about that. About our Indonesian brothers, I think Alhamdulillah, most of them have been evacuated peacefully. We have more than 1,000, I think, plus students and who are still studying in some universities in Khartoum. They were transported to Port Sudan with the support of the embassy there and the Sudanese authority, and from there to Jeddah, and there was an aerial evacuation. And I heard also there are aerial evacuation directly from Port Sudan to Indonesia. Now I think most of them are back safely. And inshallah, after things are settled, they will go back to Sudan to continue their studies. By the way, we have a big number of Indonesian students, those who did their graduation and studies and even post-graduation in Sudan. Among them, one of the famous sheikh, I think, Sheikh Abdul Samad, a very famous orator. He did his PhD in Sudan. So we have not less than 3,000 Indonesians who did their studies in Sudan, and we have direct relations with them as our brothers and permanent representative of Sudan in Indonesia. Yes, any more questions?
We go for the second round. Yeah, is the nearest.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Widi Kusnadi from Mi'rat News Agency. As we know that Sudan is supporting Palestinian for a long time, but in the pandemic era, government of Sudan tried to have a bilateral relationship with Israel. So, do you think that this conflict in Sudan right now purely national interest, or is there any foreign interest in this conflict? Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Teddy from liputan6.com. I have a question for you, Mr. Ambassador. Is there any diplomatic talk between Sudan and Indonesia to end the conflict? For example, the Ibu Retno Marsudi to over negotiation to help the situation? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Regarding the relation between Sudan and Israel, I can assure you that there is no any diplomatic relations with Israel. Through that, the leader of the Supreme Sovereign Council of Sudan met the former, now he's the incumbent Prime Minister of Israel in Uganda. It was organized by Uganda, the neighboring country, and that was for a political reason. It was just took place in that place, and nothing in the capital of Uganda, and nothing followed that. There is no any development of relations, and of course, the decision, the final decision will be after having end of this transitory period, an election will take place. Then the party that win the election will decide whether to have relation with Israel or not. But I can assure you that, and say similar like here in Indonesia, very few people who are in a position to propagate a normalization of relation with Israel. Sudanese by nature are supportive of Israel, of the Palestinian cause, and very few people, maybe some of the politicians, thinking that we have to have a normalized relation with Israel, like some Arab countries. Now I think you know that Israel has diplomatic relation with many Arab countries also. Some of them open, and some of them under. Yes, not officially, but we are not having any sort of relations with Israel till now, and we feel that the majority of the Sudanese are not supportive of normalization of having direct political or diplomatic relation with Israel. Regarding our efforts, yes, we are going to meet our brothers at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I look forward also to see Her Excellency Minister. We brief her about the latest development, and we seek the assistance of our Indonesian brothers in the international forum, and we are expecting always a positive opposition, which is supportive to Sudan, as usual, from Indonesia. Questions? Yes.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Just one question, but I think this is important because since I was a little girl, I already heard about Sudan, and it was devastating for me. And so, as a Muslim, I would like to express my sorrow feeling for Sudan and the Sudanese, you know. And just one question. Is that all, you know, everyone likes to come to the party, right? And I think it's also happened in Sudan. And so I think everyone wants to have a tasty pies. Just a little bit, but, you know, this is related to the political events, and also ambassador already described about the slavery in Sudan and so on. And this is not the time anymore for all those things like that. So Sudan has to end by its people to be the freedom and show to the world the sovereignty of North Sudan, I think, because Muslim 97% from the total 47 million, right? I hope that everything will be smooth, and I hope that the governments of Indonesia also will support for this kind of outcome. Thank you. And I hope that one day I can make a literacy program also with ambassador, like with other ambassadors. Thank you.
Ambassador, sorry, I got additional questions. Since you mentioned about your family also impacted by this conflict and they've moved to the rural area, could you please tell us, if you don't mind, about how they are surviving during amidst the conflict? And second, I'm wondering how many Sudanese in Indonesia? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me start by the first lady. Thank you very much for your emphasizing with us, and I look forward to see you anytime. You're welcome. Any of you who interest to meet us for further information, you are welcome, all of you. I think the position of the African Union was very strong during the Security Council meeting, and this what's going on in Sudan is being described as an internal issue. We're not looking for any interference from any other countries. The only way is to support the government for the humanitarian ground that will be in coordination with the government of Sudan. On the other way, of course, politically, the consultation will continue with our friendly countries and with the international community. Unfortunately, it came in the media yesterday, the former Prime Minister of the interim government, Dr. Hamdok, visited the Republic of Kenya and met the President of Kenya. And Hamdok, he resigned due to his continuous failure. He couldn't achieve any political success. And also several reasons. This is not the time to mention them. But he described what's going on in Sudan as going to be the worst civil war in the world. It is not a civil war. This is, as I mentioned, and I repeat, and I have to emphasize on that. This is not a civil war in Sudan. This is a factions in the army, rebellious, and took the arm, and they want to seize power by force. The national army has to fight with them, and they have two options: either to surrender, or they will face the consequences. So there is no question of civil war. So what has been said, it is very unfortunate, by a person in his capacity, and this is not accepted by many Sudanese. The second question you mentioned, what? Sorry, this is, I think, also part of the carnage, image being propagated by the Western media. If you go to any place even within Khartoum itself, we will send you some footage, and the life is normal. Just like within the capital, there are certain areas where there is some sporadic fighting and some instability there. But in all cities, You know, millions. Khartoum itself is, the population of Khartoum is about 7 to 8 million population. I think half of them went back to their, their origin. So a place where I came from is about 150 kilometers. Just like Java, for example, as you mentioned. And it's a peaceful life there, just like living peacefully. There is nothing to worry about. And we communicate on a daily basis. And as I mentioned, within Khartoum, situation is calm. And, people are now, some of them are coming back. So the situation is peaceful now. And also some of our people who went to Egypt, some of them now coming back. So this is a fact. But sometimes when you listen to major fighting is going on and it is unstable, but an agenda, as I mentioned, there is an agenda behind that. We would like to make it clear for you that things are stable in most part of the capital. Indonesia. Some of them actually become Indonesian. They got married and settled here for the last 20 or 30 years. There is between 300 to 100 Sudanese. Most of them are settled, well settled. Some of them are doing businesses here. Some of them are students also. I think the communities, we used to meet on a regular basis. They have become Indonesians, at the extent, those who lived here for sometimes. And some of them got the nationality also.
Okay, once again, there is no any more question. There is one.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Antoni from Indonesia Window. I have two questions. One is about the students, Indonesian students who has been evacuated to Jeddah, and then how their future when they want to come back to continue their study. Do you think that is there any solution? I mean, time? How long they can go or they can come back to Sudan to continue their studies? This is the first question. And it is interesting that about you mentioned the what happened in Sudan is not a civil war. Civil war. Well, to my understanding that those who rebel, I believe that they would like to take over the power from the current leadership, because the two generals are friends when they topple President Bashir. So, what is the essence of the quarreling partner, the quarreling brothers? You know, I remember when I visited Darfur. I don't know whether I was accompanied by armed forces from Sudan, so, SIF, or RSF, repeat, yeah, Janjawi. I don't know, because so far they are wearing non-military, or they are wearing like us, plain coats. So I want your confirmation or clarification. How the government or the current authority to to neutralize the former rebels from RSM. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much. I'm happy that we have our brother who visited Sudan before. So you have a good experience, I think, about what's going on in Sudan. Regarding the students, the Indonesian students, we have actually more than 50 universities in Sudan, scattered in many places. And due to this instability, it was very unfortunate, especially the universities in Khartoum. Now they are not in a position to continue providing the services. But for sure, our brothers who have been safely evacuated from Jeddah back home to Jakarta, they will be back to Sudan soon as those who are willing to continue, especially those who are doing their PhD or they are in the middle ranks, just like two years to graduate or 3 years to graduate or less than that, they would rather prefer to go back to Sudan to continue their studies. And we are expecting this, the situation will be very normal within few months, because now we are facing a lot of difficulties, but it is a matter of 2 to 3 months. Inshallah, things will be back to normal, and these students will be welcome to go back to Sudan to continue their studies. Let me just explain something very important. Bashir was not removed by General Burhan. Bashir was removed by a public uprising, and this is not the first time. Sudan has witnessed, I think Sudan is the only country in the Middle East and Africa which has 3 public uprisings against the military government. This is very important to mention. In 1964, people revolted against the generals at that time and brought a civilian government. In 1985, also, people revolted in public uprisings against the military government and brought a civilian government. And those civilian governments, due to instability between the warring, factions among the political parties, they failed. And then later on, the military took over again in 1989, during the Bashir era for 30 years. And again, people revolted against him. So Burhan, he was the commander of the army. When the people revolted, he just took over for an interim period to prepare the interim transitory period for an election. And about the rapid support forces, actually the number, as I mentioned earlier, has increased from 20,000 to 100,000. And I forget to mention that they also took part in the war of Yemen. The Sudan army was supportive to the Saudi against the Houthi in Yemen, and some of those forces were fighting there. So this is one of the reasons why the number has increased. But Burhan and Hemeti were friends. Ironically, the over-ambitious of this Daglo, General Daglo, and the foreign support has encouraged him to think that he is in opposition to seize power. That's why he sent his troop to assassinate his friend in the day and the early morning of the last 10 days of Ramadan. I think we all heard about that. And he came out in the media, in Al Jazeera, in other news channel, and he talked directly. He said, either I will kill him or I'll take him to court. This is General Daglo. So people were very much sad about this development. And inshallah, we hope very quickly things will be controlled by the army, and a transitory period will take place for a proper election, hopefully within a year or two, inshallah. Thank you very much. Okay, let me thank you very much for all of you. And in case any further clarification or questions, Sister Tumaina will be assisting you by providing you some footage and some more information. And press release will be sent to you, hopefully today or tomorrow. And we look forward to see any of you anytime. And thank you very much for being with us today. Thank you very much.